So good day, comrades. It's I always say that because it's true. It's a big, huge honor to be here with you. Indonesia, for me, it's one of the three most important countries for the future, alongside with India and China. And it's the big baby because it's my cherished baby because it's a great opportunity to talk about this big country, to learn with you, and to share my knowledge with you as well. Today we're going to talk about the culture of port and strategic workers. It means all the logistic line. I was talking not long ago with Anga about civil aviation workers and how this is important together with the strategic and the logistic line. So I say welcome to you all and invite you all to think a little bit about the culture, the labor culture. Labor culture, we don't talk about that when we reflect about our issues and problems. So we will talk about the culture of port and strategic and logistic workers, the defense of organized labor, exclusivity, collective labor, management. We will talk about that. The distribution of wealth created in the port system of our lines and strategic lines. And I give it to you, Surya, to translate,
Ntar gue
please.
kasih bintang 5 ya. Gimana
Hello,
cara
Jackie, Anga,
Oh,
everybody that's
jangan,
there.
jangan.
I say hello to you.
Ya udahlah. Gmail. Jangan. Gmail aja ya. Lu kirim linknya bisa kan? Bisa. Nanti gue kirim-kirimnya terus kita kirim
Yeah, there's
foto-foto kan.
one with the
Jadi itu aja
microphone
ntar ya.
open. Surya, if you can talk. Surya, your micro is closed. If you can open.
Sorry, yeah. Dave,
Right.
hello, David.
No, David. Well,
Yes.
Yeah, it's quite noisy. Could you please mute for a bit?
yeah, he did. Thank you,
Okay,
David. Thank you.
that's our member.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you, Dave.
selamat malam teman-teman.
I will mute my speaker
Yep.
directly.
Thank you, David.
Oke, selamat malam teman-teman. Merupakan kehormatan seperti biasa, Prof. Marcelo hadir di sini karena menurut dia Indonesia adalah salah satu 3 negara paling penting selain India dan Cina, merupakan kesempatan yang sangat besar untuk membagi pengetahuan sebagaimana diskusi sebelumnya, sebelum acara mulai tadi, berdiskusi tentang teman-teman di airport di bandara, ada Angga, ada Jeki di sini. Jadi hari ini materinya adalah terkait tentang budaya pelabuhan dan pekerja strategis, di mana pembelaan terhadap buruh yang harus terorganisir, pengelolaan tempat kerja yang secara kolektif dan eksklusif, serta bagaimana terkait dengan mekanisme pembagian keuntungan yang dihasilkan oleh pelabuhan ataupun airport sejak zaman dulu.
So the idea is to study a general culture of strategic workers. As in theory they are stronger, they have a culture backing them, making them even stronger. And today is the 6th class, so it's the core, it's the half of the course, and culture is the half of the organizing core. That is when you do organizing and when you build popular fronts, the next class, the 7th and the 5th class. That's why culture is in the middle. So if you can translate that, please, Surya.
Oke, idenya dari materi ini adalah bagaimana kita mempelajari tentang budaya yang secara umum dimiliki oleh teman-teman pekerja pelabuhan, yang mana sudah dikenal sebagai pekerja yang memiliki budaya solidaritas yang kuat. Dan saat ini kelas ke-6 ini adalah inti daripada perkuliahan selama 12 kelas nanti, di mana nantinya ada pengorganisiran juga di kelas ke-7 dan juga sebelumnya juga membicarakan tentang pengorganisiran. Jadi kelas ke-6 ini adalah di antara kelas ke-5 dan ke-7 tadi membicarakan inti daripada budaya tentang pekerja.
So as it's written here, we deal with three things. First of all, our access to labor, work itself. We were discussing with Anga outsourcing. So what kind of work we have? This is the first idea that backs the culture. The more we are organized, the less outsourced, the less precarious, the more access to good salary, decent work. This is one issue about organized labor. Okay. Then it has a second notion of organized labor. It's not just about laws, it's about how we organize the workers. The quantity is okay, the quality is okay. If we participate in hiring people when they are fired, if you are there, and if we form, we educate these people. This is the second notion that we will discuss today. And the third is in a rich country like Indonesia. And I said that when I met Jackie 15 years ago, when we studied together, Indonesia was not as strong as today and not projecting its power for the future as today. So, as I said, Indonesia will be in 2050 one of the three strongest countries in the world, alongside with China and India. And we must share this wealth with the society. And we do that through the working class and through the most strategic part of the working class. So these three notions we will talk about today. Organized labor means have access to decent work, have access to our exclusive collective labor management, and have access to the wealth and its distribution in Indonesia. These three conscience are part of the culture of strategic workers. So I give it to you back, Surya, so you can translate. E Patrícia pode passar.
Oke, hari ini intinya kita akan membicarakan tentang 3 hal. Yang pertama, bagaimana pengorganisiran, sehingga dari pengorganisiran ini kita memiliki akses, apakah itu akses kepada upah yang layak, bahkan hidup layak, dan lain sebagainya. Yang kedua, tentang bagaimana kita mengelola anggota kita secara kolektif, memberikan edukasi, sehingga bukan hanya bicara soal kuantitas, tetapi secara kualitas juga terpenuhi. Yang ketiga adalah bagaimana memperjuangkan pembagian keuntungan yang adil dari aktivitas ekonomi di pelabuhan ataupun bandara, sehingga yang disampaikan oleh Marcelo tadi, bagaimana ini bukan hanya soal Indonesia, seperti yang didiskusikan oleh Marcelo kepada Jackie, bahwa beberapa waktu lalu mereka berdiskusi, Indonesia tidak sekuat hari ini, tetapi saat ini mulai terlihat bahwa kekuatan Indonesia mulai dipandang oleh dunia, dan di tahun 2050 Indonesia ini akan menjadi menurut Marcelo 1 dari 3 negara terkuat selain India dan Cina. Tapi pertanyaannya adalah bagaimana kita memperjuangkan pembagian kekayaan ataupun keuntungan dengan orang banyak. Nah, ini bisa dilakukan lewat perjuangan kelas pekerja. Nah, inilah bagian inti yang akan dibicarakan terkait dengan budaya yang akan dibicarakan pada topik kali ini.
So we have in this geopolitics, as I said, it's just a projection that Indonesia will be alongside with India and China, because nowadays we have Korea and we have Japan, and then we have other countries like Australia in this area. But those are declining countries, in my view. In geopolitics, Indonesia, India, and China, they are growing up, and the other are declining. It can be different in 25 years, but the idea is to deal that we have to participate in this wealth. We as workers have to participate in this growth, whether if you are in Indonesia or in India or in China or in Korea or in Japan or in Australia. We must participate. But then you have two big clashes. One is capital against workers, and the other is the culture itself. The culture of capital is one, and the culture of workers when they are educated, when they are when they have conscience, when they are organized is another. So financial capital and banks, as we shall see, make this predominance. Okay, since the new liberal years in the 90s, financial capital is ahead. It's not the airline, it's not the dock operators, it's not the maritime uh, bosses. It's financial capital. Okay, the last 50 years, it's financial capital and banks, as we shall see, make this predominance of a handful of large companies even more overwhelming. And we should say overwhelming in the most literal sense of the word. So it's not just we have a small number of companies, but also that these companies are more and more in the financial system. Okay, so it's overwhelming in this sense. Millions of small, medium, and even some of the large employers find themselves completely subject to a few hundred millionaire financiers. So these who rule Indonesia and who rule the world, they are not many, they are few, and fewer and fewer and fewer they are becoming. The other thing is that the enormous growth of industry and remarkably rapid process of concentration of production in even larger companies constitutes one of the most characteristic features of capitalism. So capitalism, whether in Indonesia, whether in Brazil, whether in South Africa, whether in Europe, in the United States, they are becoming less and less companies. So before you had hundreds of airline companies, and now they are mostly 10, 15, 20 global one, if we can say, because the tendency is to concentrate. And in maritime, it's even bigger because we have not so many companies. We have lots of flag of convenience, but big companies, we don't have many. And the docks is also following the same process. Usually, governments that have sovereignty, they think about having a national flag for airlines, for rail, for intern logistic links and the line of supply chain, maritime, and ports, if they are strong governments. So you cannot compare the government of Indonesia and Cambodia, for example. One is a lot weaker than the other one because the sense of sovereignty is a lot stronger in Indonesia, but it's not as strong as we would like, because we must put these few industries and this financial system, this capital culture, under the mentality of the workers' culture, of the Indonesian society's culture. That's our challenge. Globalized financialization concentrates enterprise. This is a global phenomenon. Power means of production, factories, ports, airports, rail, truck, refineries, maritime, in fewer and fewer hands. From this concentrated power arises a dominant culture that goes inside our workers. And that's why an outsourced worker doesn't feel like an employee, because this capital culture goes inside of him. It's like he breathes this. It's like he thinks this. It's like he sees this every day. It's a dominant culture. It spreads everywhere. For example, the genesis of individualism. And behind this movement lies everything that exists. So that's why the workers don't unionize, because they think like the bosses. The dominant ideas of a society is the dominant ideas of the bosses. They think like the bosses. So we must put our culture in the name of Indonesian society and in global internationalism as well. So this dominant individualist idea or culture has existed and will exist. And the power that presents itself as a mirror and invites us to be part of it. It's always inviting our comrades, our colleagues, our fellow workers at the grassroots to be part of them. So we are a family of American Airlines, of Cathay Pacific, of Qantas, of a docker operator, of a maritime company. We are not ourselves. We are part of them. But we have to oppose this culture with another culture. I give the floor back to you, Surya.
Oke, tadi Prof. Marcelo menyampaikan soal geopolitik di mana proyeksinya adalah Indonesia bersama India dan Cina tendensinya terus meningkat, terus naik. Sementara di kawasan Asia ada Korea, Jepang, Australia ini cenderung menurun. Tapi intinya adalah bagaimana kita berpartisipasi dalam melihat kenaikan daripada kekayaan di masing-masing negara ini, dan di dua sumbu, yang satu naik, yang satu turun. Jadi dalam slide ini ada dua culture besar, dua budaya besar, yaitu ada budaya modal dan budaya pekerja. Di mana satu terkait dengan modal keuangan dan perbankan, ini secara sejarah sangat kuat gitu. Dulunya bukan soal pelabuhan atau bandara, tetapi terkait dengan perbankan, di mana ini membuat dominasi segelintir perusahaan besar menjadi semakin kuat. Dan tadi Marcelo menekankan bahwa kata kuat di sini adalah dalam arti sesungguhnya, di mana jutaan usaha kecil, menengah, bahkan sebagian perusahaan besar akhirnya berada sepenuhnya di bawah kendali beberapa orang investor ataupun konglomerat keuangan. Inilah yang menguasai Indonesia dan dunia. Di sisi lain, pertumbuhan industri yang sangat besar dan proses pemusatan produksi yang berlangsung dengan cepat ke dalam perusahaan-perusahaan yang semakin besar, ini merupakan salah satu ciri utama dari sistem kapitalisme yang mengatur dunia saat ini. Data paling lengkap tentang proses ini dapat dilihat dalam sensus industri modern yang digunakan secara luas di seluruh dunia. Jadi, menurut Marcelo, kapitalis dimanapun ini akan cenderung semakin sedikit dan sedikit. Sehingga pemerintahan yang kuat seharusnya punya kedaulatan atas pelabuhan, atas kereta api, atas bandara, ataupun sistem logistik lainnya. Jika dibandingkan dengan Kamboja, tentu mereka lebih lemah dibandingkan kita. Tapi Indonesia pun belum sekuat yang kita inginkan. Challenge atau tantangannya adalah bagaimana merubah mental daripada pekerja. Nah, finansialisasi global ini juga menyebabkan perusahaan, kekuasaan, alat produksi, pabrik, pelabuhan, bandara, kilang minyak, dan berbagai sektor lainnya, ini seperti yang disampaikan sebelumnya, terkonsentrasi di tangan semakin sedikit pihak. Dari kekuasaan yang terpusat inilah lahir budaya dominan yang menyebar kemana-mana, misalnya budaya individualisme yang tadi digambarkan oleh Marcelo, dan juga diskusi di awal tadi terkait dengan pekerja outsourcing. Ini adalah bentuk daripada budaya yang dominan, di mana ide dominan itu adalah yang selama ini ada di benak pekerja adalah ide daripada bos-bos atau ide daripada manajemen. Dan di balik gerakan dominan ini sesungguhnya terkandung seluruh sistem yang pernah ada, yang ada sekarang bahkan ke depan. Nah, inilah kekuasaan yang menampilkan wujudnya seperti cermin dan mengajak kita untuk menjadi bagian daripada sistem tersebut. Dan kita harus mengubah semuanya ini, kita harus menguatkan budaya pekerja itu sendiri.
So it's important to point two things. One is that we have a lot of cultures in Southeast Asia that is on the rise. So we can look at a country like Singapore. It's a very strong country that I didn't talk about. But then you have Malaysia. When you look at the future, I believe more in Malaysia than in Singapore. And that's why I believe that the association of Malaysia and Indonesia is a powerful one within ASEAN. It's a very strong one because it points to the future. And on the other side, we have solidarity. Countries like weaker countries like Timor East, like Cambodia that I said, other countries that we have to be solidary within this rise, because the region is on a rise. If we would compare a little bit, would be like the European Union. Countries like Germany helping Greece or Serbia or Bulgaria, for example. So the idea of solidarity among countries as well. On the other hand, we have the things that we discussed here, like when Anga just said about outsourcing. So if we say the three biggest issues that we have with dockers, maritime, and airline workers, not talking about the other strategic workers, because we have to think about all the logistic line. Look what happened in Italy last weekend. All the logistic line was impacted by the Solidarity for Palestine. So the squares were full from the dockers to the bus workers or the logistic workers. All they were together with the same culture, the same mentality. But on the other side, we have the capitalist culture. The capitalist culture is what we said, individualism. And individualism is in the back of outsourcing. Outsourcing is to deny the worker its identity, its culture, it's part of it. And that's why the union has to organize everybody inside the airport, everybody inside the port, everybody inside the ship. And this is everybody inside the railway, everybody inside the truck system, the bus system. All the logistic must be organized. With the dockers will be the port. People will deny the identity of some work and say, you are not dockers. You're not dockers. So you cannot have legislation because you're not dockers. And for in the ship, the same. They will try to divide the captain and the one that works in the ship, for example, in the tourist ship with the people. They will say, you're not under the same regulation, you're not under the same law. I'm a maritime, you're not maritime. So this is one kind of outsourcing. outsourcing is this. And this has a culture behind. And the culture is a capital culture, a capitalist culture, an individualist culture. And this is in the genesis, is the seed of outsourcing problem. Patrícia, coloca a apresentação, por favor, na quarta. I give it back to you, Surya, to translate this, please.
Marcelo menyampaikan dua hal penting dan ingin
Patrícia,
dia tekankan.
Coloca para mim a
Pertama
apresentação.
bahwa kita
Positivo,
memiliki...
Marcelo.
Go ahead, Surya, sorry.
Oke. Kita memiliki budaya yang sedang tumbuh saat ini di kawasan Asia Tenggara. Tadi Marcelo lupa menyebutkan bahwa ada satu contoh negara di Asia Tenggara, yakni Singapura, yang cukup kuat. Tetapi menurut Marcelo, ketika membicarakan Malaysia di jangka panjang, mungkin Malaysia ini akan melewati Singapura. Karena dia percaya bahwa kerjasama antara Malaysia dan Indonesia ini akan menjadi satu kekuatan yang diperhitungkan di level ASEAN. Di sisi lain, kita harus juga bersolidaritas terhadap beberapa negara yang terhitung lumayan lemah, seperti Timor Leste, Kamboja, karena jika dibandingkan dengan negara-negara di Eropa, mereka sudah bersolidaritas sejak lama, antara misalnya yang negara kuat Jerman bersolidaritas kepada Yunani, Serbia, Bulgaria. Idenya adalah bagaimana bersolidaritas ini menyeberangi batas negara. Seperti yang tadi juga didiskusikan sebelumnya terkait isu outsourcing, bahwa ada beberapa hal besar terkait yang terjadi di Indonesia, apakah itu di pelabuhan ataupun di bandara, ataupun pekerja logistik lainnya. Marcelo menyampaikan contoh di Italia, semua logistik itu terdampak ketika mereka melakukan solidaritas kepada Palestina. Jadi ini yang ingin disampaikan oleh Marcelo adalah ketika kita sesama pekerja memiliki budaya dan mentaliti yang sama, ini akan menguatkan kita. Di sisi lain, Marcelo juga menekankan soal budaya kapitalisme itu sama dengan individualisme. Nah, budaya inilah yang menolak identitas pekerja. Nah, dan ketika terjadi atau ada penguatan budaya individualis, yang mana ini jadi cerminan dari budaya kapitalis, ini adalah yang membuat outsourcing tumbuh subur. Jadi bagaimana kita mengorganisir pekerja, apakah itu outsourcing ataupun pekerja organik, baik di airport maupun di pelabuhan, intinya adalah bagaimana kita mengorganisir ini sehingga tidak dapat dipecah belah oleh persepsi bahwa aturan di manajemen adalah yang harus dipatuhi, tetapi aturan pekerja ataupun serikat itu adalah hal yang beda. Nah, inilah yang harus dicoba dipecah lewat diskusi kelas hari ini. Yeah, please, Marcelo.
So what you have now, it's a representation of the working class in its classic view. Il quarto stato in Italian means the fourth state. It means popular power, people's power, because you have executive, legislative, and judiciary. And the fourth state is the power exercised directly. And this is very classic, but it's also very modern, because the Italians, they managed to put everybody in the strategic position in the last months, occupying the squares in an organized way from the docks. And the idea here is to show a little bit how the workers, they are together, because it's a strike, it's a complete strike in one city. In one city, it stopped completely, and they went exercising their power, stopping working, but also with everybody. So everybody, it was like a consensus. So you have all the workers together, but you have also children, women, everybody in this sense. This is not easy to do, but it's the aim is to represent our power, people's power, our culture behind the workers, behind society. The fourth state is not just workers, it's the whole of society, it's the whole of people, it's populo, it's people in this sense. And then you have the leadership, and then you have the others that come behind, but it's a mass thing. It's not a culture that belongs only to leadership. Our aim is to share this culture, this participative culture, this participative solidarity. And then you sometimes you have like uh, someone will come and say, okay, we have children, we have a responsibility at home, you must be responsible, you have to think about your kids, your family. Sometimes we listen to that at the grassroots. I said I cannot join the union because I'm afraid. I cannot join the union because I will suffer consequences. I will be I will and my family will suffer. But through the leaderships, through the cadres, through the politic of cadres, we can massify the culture that makes people comfortable, in the sense they are collectively comfortable, collectively within the culture, collectively in solidarity. Uh, if it touches you, it touches me. So we will not let you down. And that's the idea. Okay? This is the picture, a global classic picture representing Il Quarto Stato. It's the idea of this complexity of the working class, of the society together with a culture behind it. Okay, Surya, giving back to you.
Marcelo menunjukkan sebuah gambar namanya quarto stato atau terjemahnya keadaan keempat. Ini adalah penggambaran persepsi klasik tetapi masih relevan di dunia modern saat ini, di mana bisa digambarkan tiga kekuatan utama, ada eksekutif, legislatif, yudikatif, tetapi ada kekuatan keempat yakni pekerja. Dalam gambar ini menunjukkan bahwa bagaimana ketika pekerja secara bersama-sama menunjukkan kekuatan dan melakukan perlawanan, bahkan juga mereka melibatkan siapapun, setiap orang gitu. Nah, ini bukan hal yang mudah, tetapi ini adalah tujuannya, ini adalah budaya pekerja, yang mana di belakang pekerja itu harus hadir juga masyarakat, rakyat, dan ini adalah bentuk sebuah budaya dan solidaritas yang partisipatif. Kadang-kadang ada wacana atau diskusi bahwa kita nggak bisa bergabung dengan serikat karena ada anak-anak, ada tanggung jawab, tapi lewat kepemimpinan dan kaderisasi, kita juga bisa bikin perjuangan secara nyaman dan juga secara kolektif. Misalnya satu disentuh, yang lain juga disentuh. Jadi ide dari gambar ini atau intinya adalah bagaimana menggambarkan kompleksitas kaum pekerja, yang mana untuk melibatkan masyarakat dalam perjuangan bersama.
So the idea is to say that our culture is a collective culture. And then you have, I advise you, I really put emphasis on that, to have this picture in your trade union, because it represents the working class, the society as a whole, the society, the solidarity culture that we want to build. And then we have, as Tamalaka for Indonesia, we have Antonio Gramsci for Italy. That is that try to write about this solidarity. Próximo, Patrícia, por favor. Coach, so go ahead, Surya. I'm sorry.
Yeah, the last sentence was powerful. I will try to translate. Marcelo menekankan bahwa dari gambar tersebut idenya adalah bagaimana kita menguatkan budaya kita pekerja sebagai budaya kolektif, yang mana ini mewakili atau merepresentasikan kaum pekerja, dan ini akan kita bangun terus. Bahkan tokoh di Indonesia, Tan Malaka, dan juga tokoh di Italia, Antonio Gramsci, menulis beberapa materi, beberapa buku bahkan terkait dengan solidaritas ini.
So then we have culture under the domination of capital and culture under the domination of workers in Indonesia. Okay, it's so it's in clash not just in the 20th and 21st century, but all over Indonesian history, it was like that. People that worked and people that lived on the expenses of the workers. Okay? And in this sense, Indonesia had its culture evolving as Indonesian people and as Indonesian workers. So the working class in Indonesia has developed over millennia as a very old civilization, both autonomously and sovereignously, as well under colonial rule. But people that don't know much about the Indonesian history, and we have to teach them, when the Portuguese first came to Malacca, and Malacca was one of the three most important places for the Portuguese Empire. Was not Brazil. Brazil was not important. Was Goa for India, Hormuz for the Arabic Peninsula and the Persian Peninsula, and Malacca, the Strait of Malacca, that gave access to China and Japan, the biggest civilizations at the time. But Indonesia was present already through the sultanates, and it organized all this area of Malacca. It had its own identity, and the sultans, they controlled the shipment of spices that went to the Silk Road, to Rome, to Greece before, and later to Europe and other places, and the Ottoman Empire. So Indonesian development and its culture was already present before the Portuguese and the Dutch, a lot before, and before the Arabics as well, and before the Hindi as well. So we have to understand that in order to understand the history of Indonesia when we explain to the workers that their culture is a collective culture. It's not an individualist culture. It's not outsourcing culture. It's not that. But more important than the history, or as important as the history, is that the Indonesian people can be considered a people of the sea and of commerce. Okay? Both the 20th and 21st centuries are fundamental to the study of the working class in Indonesia, with the year of 2050 seen as the year of economic ascension and supremacy for the country. But as I explained, I'm not against the supremacy of Indonesia as a country, but if it does not share this wealth with its own population, it means nothing. If it's a supremacy to be like the Brazilian society, where 1% of the population gets 70% of the wealth in the hands of 1%, and 50% of the Brazilian gets just 2% of the wealth. This is not good for society. That's what we have to fight. That's what we have to explain how a society can work in a different way. So the essence, the rising until 2050, it must mean that these people of the sea, these people of commerce, will share the wealth within Indonesian society. The question posed in this study, and that's why we are here, is to achieve working class supremacy or society, Indonesian society supremacy in this process of wealth distribution based on the example and leadership of strategic workers. That's why we're here. Because people in the logistic line, in the global supply, and especially the national supply chain line, will look at the dockers, will look at the maritime, will look at the airline workers, and they say, if they are not in a good position, I cannot be. And that's why we gotta be the example in this sense. That's why it's strategic. That's why the culture is so important. And I present to you just a sip, just an introduction of the subjects that the cadres must study in order to educate the other strategic workers. So you understand a little bit about politics, as we are doing here, sociology, anthropology, social policy, political policy, like I was discussing with Anga. If we will set up a working group to discuss outsourcing in the airline and the whole organizing process, this is political policy. Then we have law. Then we have history. Then we have geography. Then we have economics. Then we have philosophy. Then we have communication. Then we have, as we're doing here, labor studies. We have ecology. We have theology to understand how this big country is organized. And we have Muslims, we have Christians, we have Hindu, we have all these people working in the same country. Then we have diplomacy. Social dialogue is important. But diplomacy means also preparing for struggle. Then we have pedagogy, as we're doing here. Then we have many other studies that will give, like I said, communication and other studies. There are 20 social science studies to contribute management, workers' management. It's part of the culture of workers. All these 20 studies, they are to help the cadres, the policy of cadres, to understand and to teach and to learn with the workers, okay? And afterwards, if you want, I can send you the 20 subjects, but I spoke of them here, and it will be recorded, that you can manage and then you can study. Oh, I will set up a lab to study philosophy. Oh, I will study one to study economics, the other management, the other law, the other, and we have a class about labor laws. And then the other one we will study about politics, especially geopolitics. All this is part of a big cathedral, a big mosque, a big temple, that the ideas, they flow inside of it. There's no walls. It's not like in the classic university that you study politics, you study just politics. Or you study law, so you study just law. Or you study geography, or you study just geography. No, we mingle, we put all together, like cooking everything together here. So we can teach the workers and we can learn with the workers. And finally, the development of workers' political culture, because this is about political culture, okay? It's a workers' political culture requires understanding that it is possible to share wealth as an alternative to a culture of economic elites and how they lie to people. They say, first, I have to become rich. My company has to become rich. And then we give you the crumbs. We give you what's left. This is not true. And as an alternative to a mass culture that we want to spread, so their mass culture spreads lies and misinformation, an enemy of work and science, because sometimes they base themselves in religion. They base themselves in dividing the workers and say, you are outsourced. I work for the company. I work for the government. You are outsourced. You are nothing. It's not true. We are all in the same boat. We are all in the same port. We are all in the same rail company. We are all in the same airport. So, in this sense, music, theater, cinema, arts, folklore, myths, religion, television, social media can also serve to inform in our hands, not in the capital's hand, but in our hands, to shape and educate, depending on who is in charge of the historical process. If we give this historical process to the bosses, we will have capital culture, not workers' solidarity culture in Indonesia. Give it back to you, Surya.
Oke, dalam slide ini Marcelo membahas tentang budaya di bawah dominasi modal dan di sisi lain budaya di bawah dominasi kaum pekerja di Indonesia. Di mana budaya pekerja dalam perkembangan kaum pekerja di Indonesia ini telah berkembang selama ribuan tahun, baik secara mandiri dan berdaulat maupun pada saat masa penjajahan. Jadi bangsa Indonesia dapat dipandang sebagai bangsa maritim dan bangsa perdagangan. Marcelo memberikan contoh ketika Portugis datang pertama kali di Malaka, sehingga memberikan akses ke Cina dan Jepang, di mana saat itu adalah peradaban terbesar, dan bagaimana mengontrol perdagangan, jalur perdagangan rempah-rempah ke Eropa, bahkan Kekaisaran Ottoman. Jadi ketika kita mengerti ini, bahwa budaya kita, budaya kaum pekerja adalah budaya kolektif, bukan budaya individual. Dan bangsa Indonesia adalah bangsa maritim dan bangsa pedagang. Pada abad ke-20 dan abad ke-21 ini merupakan periode yang sangat penting dalam kajian kaum pekerja di Indonesia. Dan nantinya di tahun 2050, ini adalah sebuah masa di mana ada kebangkitan dan kejayaan pada ekonomi di Indonesia. Namun hal penting yang ditekankan oleh Marcelo adalah jika Indonesia tidak bisa mendistribusikan kekayaan ini kepada masyarakat, ini sama saja tidak ada hasilnya. Saat ini Marcelo menggambarkan 1% kekayaan, 1% populasi itu memegang 70% kekayaan, dan di Brazil itu 2% memegang 50% kekayaan. Dan ini dipegang oleh segelintir orang. Nah, pertanyaan utama dalam kajian ini adalah bagaimana kita mencapai kekuatan dan posisi strategis kaum pekerja dalam proses pembagian kekayaan yang diproduksi oleh negara, dengan bagaimana kita meneladani peran dan kepemimpinan para pekerja di sektor strategis. Maka poinnya adalah membangun budaya ini sangat penting. Marcelo menggambarkan beberapa cabang ilmu yang harus dipelajari, yakni ada politik, antropologi, sosiologi, kebijakan, hukum, sejarah, geografi, ekonomi, filosofi, komunikasi, studi tentang pekerja atau serikat, ekologi, teologi, diplomasi, pedagogi, dan banyak cabang ilmu lainnya. Ini berkontribusi dalam membangun dan meningkatkan budaya politik kaum pekerja dalam proses ini. Marcelo bisa mengirimkan setelah kelas ini sekitar 20 cabang ilmu dan kita bisa pelajari. Jadi bukan hanya mempelajari satu sisi atau satu cabang ilmu, tetapi ini menjadi sebuah rumah besar untuk kita gabungkan semuanya, sehingga kita bisa belajar dan juga kita bisa mengajarkan teman-teman kita. Jadi perkembangan daripada budaya politik kaum pekerja adalah bagaimana kita secara kolektif membagi kesejahteraan, membagi kekayaan, dan menghindari kebohongan atau misinformasi di mana kita sering disampaikan narasi bahwa ayo kita bangun kekayaan, tetapi kita hanya diberikan remah-remah. Bahkan di bidang lain seperti musik, teater, TV, sosmed, dan lain sebagainya, ini juga bisa digunakan sebagai alat untuk membentuk dan juga memberikan edukasi kepada kaum pekerja.
Próximo, por favor, Patrícia. So you see here two different cultures. One is labor culture in the sense of politics and all the things that Surya explained to you, philosophy, management, etc. The other one is what people, common people, know about cultures: theater, music, television, social media, and they can all work together for labor culture. This is the sense. If you can translate, Surya, please.
Ya, Marcelo menambahkan tadi di sini ada dua kebudayaan, ada budaya kaum pekerja, ada juga budaya masyarakat umum. Di mana budaya pekerja tadi bagaimana kita menggaungkan budaya kolektif, sementara budaya masyarakat ini ada terkait dengan teater, musik, sosmed, dan ini kita bisa menggabungkan kedua aspek ini sebagai alat untuk membentuk dan juga mengedukasi.
So now we get into the core of the culture. The culture has three conscience. And the history of the working class culture, imports, and the logistic line, the supply chain, is the history of class struggle. So, as we saw, there are two cultures that are clashing all the time. They are using its tools to fight. So we have one individualistic culture and the other collective culture. Okay? And the creation of part in the strategic planning. So it's a project. It's not something that we imagine, but we plan. Okay? As a defense, first of all, of the labor market, our labor market. So if I think as a docker, everything inside the port is my labor market. It's where I work. So I will study this. I will plan this. I will have decent work. I will have decent salary. I will try to build people's power. Il quarto stato. Okay? Then the second level of this conscience is the means of managing the working force. So if I'm inside an airline or inside an airport, I will look how this working force is organized. It's not just to have work, to have salary, to have rights, but it's how it's organized. And how can I manage this? Who forms the minds of the workers? Who hires them? Who organizes their daily labor force? What can I do to interfere in this planning? Whether who is hired, who is fired, who is educated, who is working there. So this is the management, the labor management. I can be strong and I can be weak, but I have to study that. I have to study this in deep in the airline companies, in the outsourced companies, in the administration of the airport. I have to study the airport as a factory, as a box. And the third conscience is the struggle to divide the wealth created in the port, in the line of logistics, in the supply chain. So this is the very history of the class struggle. So if I'm a maritime and I'm inside the ship and I know this company makes a lot of money, I have to struggle to that this money goes to the workers I represent, goes to the society I live on. It cannot be so rich and the society so poor. It cannot be so rich and the working conditions, the health conditions, the salary, the working management, and the wealth itself not be shared. So these three consciences are the core of the working class culture. So this is important. So port and strategic culture. Port culture is the way in which port or strategic workers throughout history have given life to their workplace, housing, their cities and logistic chains, where the organization of port and logistic line, their own lives are inseparable because this culture is the work itself. So if I'm at the airport, for example, I go there, I spend most of my time there than with my family. So I know that place. I spend time there. I see how it works. So I have to plan, I have to study how it should be. How can I struggle to be better? And this is labor culture. Another one, port and strategic culture. Here we affirm the specific, the common aspects of port and strategic work within the strategic context of the working class as a result of mutual aid, solidarity, association and collective coexistence, cooperation, and voluntary and necessary solidarity developed throughout time, immemorial times, understood as a security and duty for each individual. So it doesn't matter, as I said before, if he's outsourced, if he's not a docker, if it's under the flag of convenience, it doesn't matter. He's a work in my sector. I have to struggle to organize them, to give them meaning, to give them collective meaning. And this is also working class culture, and especially strategic culture. An important strategic culture to finish. From slavery to servitude and free labor, all throughout this, from class struggle to education, from misery to necessity, from sadness to happiness. This culture is there. In this sense, port and the strategic workers in the port, in the airport, in the rail, in the ship, in the community, in the city, and in the supply chain, in the city, like buses, trucks, etc., is a cultural project that seeks to assert itself amidst the dispute between capital and labor. One will say, you are an individual. Think about you and maximum about your family. The other one say, no, we are all together here. My goal is their goal. My end is their end. It's a solidarity development that we have to make here. This is the working class culture in its aspects, in this rich conscience, as we said, three, but also in the manifestation that I said here, three examples as well. Surya, thank you.
Oke, jadi budaya pelabuhan dan budaya pekerja strategis adalah dasar organisasi, dasar kesadaran, dan dasar untuk pembangunan solidaritas. Di mana dalam perspektif ini ada 3 kesadaran dasar yang mana kita bisa gunakan untuk memahami budaya kita. Pertama adalah kesadaran terkait dengan apa yang kita kerjakan dan apa hak kita. Kedua, kesadaran untuk mengorganisir. Dan ketiga adalah kesadaran untuk membagikan kesejahteraan. Nah, ini adalah budaya kolektif daripada pekerja pelabuhan dan budaya pekerja strategis di sektor lainnya. Nah, di sisi lain, dasar untuk membangun hubungan dengan masyarakat adalah bagaimana kita membangun budaya untuk membela hak pekerja, baik di pelabuhan, di bandara, dan di sektor lainnya. Dan ini dilakukan untuk mencari nilai yang khas, yaitu kebersamaan bagi semua pekerja antar sektor. Oleh karena itu, pembahasan ini tentang bagaimana membangun sebuah budaya yang sangat strategis dan ini sangat penting. Budaya pelabuhan dan pekerja strategis sektor lainnya ini menjadi jembatan antara pekerja dengan masyarakat lebih luas, sehingga tadi Marcelo menggambarkan bahwa budaya strategis baik itu dari perbudakan sampai rezim buruh murah, pekerja murah, culture kaum pekerja harus hadir di sana. Beberapa pekerja dari pelabuhan, dari sektor lainnya, kereta api, bandara, bahkan masyarakat, adalah bagaimana kita membentuk budaya bahwa ada perspektif budaya kapital, ada perspektif budaya pekerja, di mana ketika kita terbentuk oleh sifat individualistik, maka kita wajib mengimbau bahwa tidak, kita dalam perjuangan yang sama, kita dalam perjuangan kolektif. Disinilah solidaritas itu harus ditumbuh kembangkan, dan kita harus mengusahakan ini. Dan lagi-lagi ini adalah ide dasar daripada budaya kaum pekerja.
So as you use the word solidaritas, but then you have also the Indonesian meaning that we discussed the last class. The idea is to have two cultures that are in face of each other. And that's why this class is one of the most important classes, because it will deal with the differences between cultures, capital and working class, but also the levels of the culture. I give you an example. If I go to the McDonald's in Jakarta today and I speak to the worker there, he will have the first conscience. He will ask me about his salary, health conditions, working conditions, retirement, if he has not has or not collective bargain agreement. This is the first conscience. If he's working or not working, unemployed. But he will not talk about the second conscience, about who hires. What is the control about who hires for McDonald's? What is the shift of working conditions, like more people, less people in this job? He has not access to this management issue. It's in the hand of the bosses, and who fires him, and especially who educates him. And that's why the labor education is so important, what we are doing here. And the third level, he will not have access at all. He will not know, like a docker that sees the wealth inside the port coming and going, the merchandise, and especially planning to know what does the port wealth in a month, in a year, in a day. So he can struggle to share this wealth. He does not have access to this thought, to this culture. He is deprived of this access. He cannot get into this place. He cannot go there. And that's why it's so important, the strategic culture, the working class strategic and logistic culture, whether for a docker, for an airline worker, for a maritime, a rail worker, truck driver, bus driver. It's important to have access to the three levels of this culture. This is very important. I give it back to you, Surya, because this is the core of this course.
Oke, Marcelo menekankan inti daripada kelas hari ini, di mana selagi-lagi budaya kaum pekerja adalah bagaimana kita berhubungan dengan budaya antara tarik-menarik antara budaya kapital, budaya kapitalisme, dan budaya kaum pekerja. Namun di bawahnya ada beberapa layer, ada beberapa layers ya. Marcelo menggambarkan tadi studi kasusnya ketika dia pergi ke McDonald, ketika berinteraksi dengan pekerja, mungkin yang akan jadi bahan diskusi adalah terkait dengan kesadaran, aspek kesadaran yang pertama, yakni mungkin mereka akan berbicara tentang gaji, keadaan kerja, bahkan sampai kepada PKB. Tapi jarang atau hampir tidak pernah membicarakan tentang kesadaran kedua, yakni siapa yang mempekerjakan mereka, bagaimana membicarakan akses kepada kondisi manajemen, siapa yang mengorganisir atau memberikan pemahaman kepada mereka. Bahkan di level ketiga itu tidak punya akses sama sekali. Kalau kita di pelabuhan, kita bisa melihat keuntungan baik harian, bulanan, maupun tahunan. Tapi untuk mereka yang contoh kasus tadi bekerja di McD, mereka tidak akan bisa melihat keuntungan. Dan budaya ini sulit dibentuk. Budaya apa? Nah, ini yang paling penting. Budaya strategis daripada 3 level tadi. Nah, ini penting untuk dipahami oleh teman-teman. Bagaimana inti daripada kelas ini adalah kita memahami budaya strategis dari 3 level kesadaran tadi. Nah, ini penting untuk dimiliki oleh pekerja pelabuhan, maritim, bandara, supir truk, supir bus, dan lain sebagainya.
Próximo, Patrícia. So now you have we put el cuarto stato, and now you have the way that in the core of Indonesian working class, the picture of it, the face of it, the face of it. Every working class has its own identity, its own culture. So I spoke about a global culture, a strategic culture, and now a national culture. We have to combine this all when we speak to the workers at the grassroots in order to unionize, in order to gain support, in order to mobilize, in order to achieve these 3 levels of conscience, the politic of cadres. And that's why I put it here. And I wish one day I will go to this square and to see these workers. There's representation because this is the national core of it. It's important to understand the culture. We have to understand its culture. And to understand the labor, we have to understand the labor culture. And to understand the strategic labor, the dockers, the maritime, the airline workers, we must understand its core as well. Próximo. I give it back to you, Surya.
Oke, Marcelo menunjukkan gambar pekerja Indonesia kalau nggak salah di lapangan Merdeka itu ya. Jadi ini adalah wajah daripada kaum pekerja di Indonesia. Tadi sudah disampaikan oleh Marcelo tentang budaya global, budaya strategik, dan ini adalah budaya nasional kita. Ketika kita akan mengorganisir atau membicarakan terkait 3 level daripada kesadaran tadi, kita harus menggabungkan aspek budaya global, strategik, dan nasional tersebut. Jadi untuk mengerti budaya kaum pekerja, untuk mengerti pekerja, kita harus mengerti budaya kaum pekerja, dan kita harus mengerti inti daripada budaya itu sendiri.
So workers' culture is class consciousness and organization, both class consciousness and organization. Power lies in the hands of those who work, those who produce, and those who work. The way to do this is through collective culture. That's why they clash. Once they say, I am here as a boss because I have power, because I'm more intelligent, because I have more money. The others is, I'm here because I represent a collective meaning, not just my individual interest. Otherwise, I would not struggle for the outsourced. I'm not outsourced. Why would I? So it's a collective meaning, collective. Each group of workers will contribute according to their global, national, and local culture, and the strategic culture as well. which will be enhanced by information, training, education, and political education as well. What we're doing. Worker culture is the way each worker collectively builds and creates the world. The bread in the hands of the baker, brick in the hands of the bricklayer, the steel in the hands of a metal worker, the steering wheel in the hands of the driver, and the passengers he transports. As for the port worker, airline worker, maritime, it is the goods in the movement of everything created in the port, in the airport, in the ship, the strategic awareness that everything created in the world passes through their hands and their fingerprints. This is the mark of port and the strategic culture in all logistic workers. To be classic, to be working class, to be class conscious. This is the mark of the culture. To be classic, to be working class, to be class conscious. Port and strategic culture is built through a permanent process of information, collective technical training for work, and a memorial political education for organized, collective, and exclusive work in the logistic chains for solidarity. When I say exclusive, organized, collective work, is when we interfere in the labor organization. When we form, when we hire, when we fire, we have intervention in this process. And that is exclusivity in the chains of logistic. And that's the solidarity in our view. Give it back to you, Suri.
Ya,
Próximo.
dalam slide ini Marcelo membahas tentang budaya sebagai kesadaran sekaligus organisasi. Kekuasaan itu ada di tangan kita yang bekerja, kita yang memproduksi, dan kita yang menghasilkan. Jadi cara mewujudkannya adalah melalui lagi-lagi budaya kolektif. Jika kita tidak berjuang secara kolektif, maka yang Marcelo sampaikan tadi, kemungkinan kita akan menjadi identitas pekerja outsourcing selamanya atau pekerja individualistik. Setiap kelompok pekerja berkontribusi sesuai dengan budaya global, nasional, dan lokal kita masing-masing, yang mana ini diperkuat lewat informasi, pelatihan, dan juga pendidikan politik. Budaya pekerja adalah cara setiap pekerja secara kolektif membangun dunia. Tadi Marcelo menggambarkan roti di tangan tukang roti, bata di tangan tukang bangunan, baja di tangan buruh logam, setir di tangan supir, dan penumpang yang ia bawa, dan juga bagi pekerja pelabuhan di mana barang-barang yang bergerak dalam setiap proses di pelabuhan itu sendiri. Kesadaran strategisnya adalah ini intinya, segala sesuatu yang diciptakan di dunia melewati tangan pekerja dan membawa jejak sidik jari tangan daripada pekerja itu sendiri. Inilah jati diri budaya pelabuhan dan seluruh pekerja sektor logistik. Untuk menjadi pekerja sejati, kita harus menjadi kaum atau kelas pekerja, dan kita harus menjadi pekerja yang sadar akan kelas. Budaya pelabuhan dan budaya strategis ini dibangun melalui proses yang dijalankan secara terus-menerus, baik itu lewat penyebaran informasi, pelatihan bersama, dan juga pendidikan politik lintas generasi. Semua ini ditujukan untuk membangun kerja-kerja yang terorganisir, kolektif, dan berdaulat dalam sistem rantai logistik sebagai wujud solidaritas yang sejati.
So I use the dockers here as an example, but you can use airline workers, rail, anything here. The strategic line will fit. The more mature the labor culture, the greater the popular power. And it means if you talk about outsourcing at the airport, the more mature the labor culture, the greater your power as a union. So you see a level of the culture. If it's more mature, you will have more power. Then you have two possibilities that I will explain at the end. From the stevedores on the ship and the docks to administration, warehouse work, the winch operator, and the stevedore inside the ship, the spaces of the port, passing through security and the worker who serves coffee inside the port, in its communities, its cities, in supply chains, throughout the entire logistic path. The greater the strength of the port and strategic culture, the greater the power of the working class in the logistic chains, because it hosts classic working class and class elements within it. And then it happens in two possibilities. Once it can be like a fire that bumps, like in Italy, for example. You have the solidarity towards Palestine, and then it's driven to that in all the logistic chain. And the other way is the hard way, daily basis. It's painful, it's patient, it's hard, it's difficult to give and embrace this collective culture. It's a daily based work. So we have two possibilities. One is when the mass move, the other is when the cadres move. And both must move. Understanding the value of organized work, the management of exclusive work is when you interfere in hire, in fire, in the formation, in the education, in the culture of the worker. The distribution of wealth, it's a higher level, prosperity, the common good to live in peace is part of the strength that workers have to conquer their rights, wages, working conditions, health, housing in the communities. The first housing laws, citizenship in the city, health, security, and education, all this came through struggle and popular power to govern the workplace together with society in the logistics link. The greater the strength of this culture, the greater the need to convince other workers who will see in it privilege, cooperation. They will look at the strategic workers and say, oh, you are privileged. I'm outsourced. I'm in the flag of convenience. I'm not a docker. So you are privileged. No, I'm not privileged. I'm an example. I'm an example for you. So who fail to see the role of masters in training, cadres in training, hiring, firing, and retirement, we have to interfere in these policies, not just the bosses, in the management of work and the wealth generated by labor generators wealth, because they were not educated for class struggle, solidarity, and popular power. So we have to do the opposite. We educate for class struggle, for solidarity, and for popular power, for a quarto stato. Give it back to you, Surya.
Oke, dalam slide ini Marcelo menggambarkan bahwa bagaimana semakin matang budaya pekerja, maka semakin besar kekuatan kita. Dalam konteks ini, Marcelo menggunakan ilustrasi pekerja pelabuhan, tapi teman-teman silahkan bisa menyesuaikan konteksnya. Bahwa dari pekerja bongkar muat di kapal dan dermaga, sampai ke bagian administrasi, pekerja gudang, operator kren, sampai buruh di dalam kapal, di seluruh area pelabuhan, ini melewati petugas keamanan dan bahkan sekalipun petugas yang menyajikan kopi dari masyarakat hingga seluruh rantai distribusi di seluruh jalur logistik. Intinya semakin kuat budaya pekerja pelabuhan atau budaya strategis, semakin besar kekuatan kaum pekerja dalam rantai logistik itu sendiri. Marcelo menggambarkan tadi solidaritas seperti bisa seperti api tinggal dipantik, seperti yang terjadi di Itali ketika bersolidaritas dengan Palestina, ataupun dalam keseharian kita yang mana mungkin sulit untuk ditumbuhkan, tapi wajib kita tumbuhkan budaya kolektif ini. Sebab di dalamnya terkandung nilai-nilai kematangan kelas atau kaum pekerja. Ada kesadaran kelas, ada solidaritas, dan ada mengorganisir. Memahami nilai-nilai yang terorganisir, pengelolaan tempat kerja yang berdaulat, pembagian keuntungan, kesejahteraan, serta kepentingan bersama adalah bagian daripada culture atau budaya pekerja. untuk mempertahankan hak-hak kita. Jadi semakin kuat budaya ini, semakin besar pula tantangan kita untuk menjelaskan kepada anggota yang mungkin melihatnya sebagai hak istimewa, kelompok eksklusif, bahkan ada istilah korporatisme, karena mereka tidak dibekali pendidikan tentang perjuangan uh, kaum pekerja, kelas pekerja, dan juga tidak diajarkan mengenai solidaritas. Intinya kita harus melakukan intervensi atas apapun yang terjadi di lingkungan kerja kita.
So even in the two moments of the culture, you have a vanguard. For example, in Italy, you have a USB. USB is a trade union in Italy that, from its sports, was ahead of the organizing process. But on the other side, you have just a local worker that never heard of the culture, and he gets into the movement and he participates. So we need both. That's why the strategic workers is a cement for that. And this is the answer for what we were discussing before. Port and strategic worker culture are the basis for organization, awareness, and the building of its solidarity. I give it back to you, Surya, so you can make this link between just a common worker that usually does not participate in the struggle, and then USB in Italy that was in front of the process to organize the mobilization of millions and millions of people in the squares. But it started with the ports that USB blocked because they said this sentence: raise the salary and put down the guns. Raise the salary, put down the guns. And this touched dockers and the common worker.
Ya, oke. Barusan Marcelo mengilustrasikan bahwa ada dua momen terkait dengan budaya. Pertama, Marcelo menggambarkan tentang Serikat Pekerja Pelabuhan di Italia, WSB, yang mana terbiasa untuk mengorganisir. Lalu di sisi lain juga ada pekerja biasa yang tidak pernah mendapatkan eksposur atau pemahaman tentang budaya kaum pekerja. Tapi tantangannya adalah bagaimana kita melibatkan mereka dalam gerakan-gerakan daripada kaum pekerja. Maka dari itu, poin yang ingin Marcelo sampaikan adalah pekerja-pekerja yang ada di level strategis, baik itu pelabuhan, bandara, dan sektor logistik lainnya, ini adalah perekat atau semen, di mana budaya pekerja pelabuhan ataupun pekerja strategis lainnya adalah menjadi basis daripada kerja-kerja pengorganisiran.
So port and strategic culture are the basis for the organization, awareness, and building of its solidarity. Is this the answer for outsourcing? Is this the answer for a flag of convenience? Is this the answer for when they say you're not Docker or you're first class Docker and he's a second class Docker? The other one is a third class Docker. No, we all Dockers. We all Dockers. I work inside the ship. You work in the warehouse. We all Dockers. I serve the coffee. The other ones work in the winch. He is also a Docker. So this is the strength of the culture. The basis for organizing collective work in the port and strategic links is the collective port and strategic culture. This is the core of this class. The stronger the culture, the weaker are our adversaries, and especially the capital culture. The foundation for any connection with society, building fronts to defend the rights of workers in ports and logistics, seeking something specific and common to all workers, prioritize speaking about the beauty of port and strategic work. It's beautiful. Our culture is beautiful. We must show this through ourselves. It's beautiful. The perspective from the docks, the crane, the container, the ports towards the sea and the land, the perspective of the environment where we are. whether airport, the rail, the buses, the trucks. It's beautiful. The perspective between the worlds of an intermundis culture, two different cultures. So these cultures of the capital individualist and our collective culture. The port and strategic culture speaks to the entire logistic chain, both globally and locally. Building the link with society involves building a link in the grassroots councils. We spoke about that. Besides the union and the culture and the popular front, we need the councils. We need the councils at the bottom one. Those who we organize directly. And these grassroots councils are in the port, in the airport, in the ship, in the rail system, in the community, in the city, in the supply chain. They are built up on port and logistic culture. Is the culture, the cement. The basis for understanding port strategic and logistical culture is to know the three consciences we spoke. The one that every worker understands, and the other two that we explain. First is the conscience to have a work. Everybody understand if they are employed and if they are working. But then we have to explain the quality of those work. The quality of those work is not just health and working conditions, salary, if it's outsourced, no outsourced. It's not that. It's who hires, who fires, who form you, who explains you how it works inside your labor place, and how can we organize labor to share wealth. These are the three consciences. I give it back to you, Surya. Próximo.
Ya, dalam slide ini Marcelo menggambarkan bahwa budaya pelabuhan dan budaya strategis adalah dasar pengorganisiran, dasar membangun kesadaran, dan dasar untuk membangun solidaritas. Ini adalah jawaban dari permasalahan outsourcing, masalah terkait dengan perjuangan teman-teman pelaut untuk melawan bendera kemudahan atau flag of convenience, ataupun pemecah belahan kelas kita diletakkan di pekerja yang eksklusif, yang kurang eksklusif, bahkan yang di titik terendah. Jadi dasar untuk mengorganisir kerja kolektif di pelabuhan dan sektor strategis lainnya adalah bagaimana kita membangun budaya kolektif pekerja dan juga membangun budaya strategis. Dasar untuk membangun hubungan dengan masyarakat adalah bagaimana membangun barisan atau front untuk membela hak pekerja di pelabuhan dan sektor logistik lainnya. Dan ini dilakukan dengan mencari nilai yang khas dan sekaligus juga menjadi nilai bersama bagi seluruh pekerja. Oleh karena itu, pembahasan ini diarahkan terkait dengan keindahan dan kekuatan budaya pelabuhan ataupun budaya strategis yang menjadi aspek penting. Budaya pelabuhan dan budaya strategis ini menjadi jembatan antar dunia atau istilahnya intermundis antara global dan lokal, antara pelabuhan dan juga masyarakat yang lebih luas. Sehingga ini menghubungkan kaum pekerja dengan masyarakat lewat tadi dewan masyarakat atau basis akar rumput, bahkan lewat solidaritas sosial, baik di pelabuhan, di lingkungan, di kota, di sistem rantai pasok, yang semuanya berakar dari budaya pekerja pelabuhan dan budaya pekerja sektor logistik. Jadi dasar untuk memahami budaya pekerja pelabuhan, budaya strategis, ini adalah terkait tadi lagi-lagi 3 kesadaran kaum pekerja. Pertama, kesadaran akan pekerjaan mereka dan juga hak-hak mereka. 2, kesadaran terkait dengan kerja-kerja yang terorganisir. Dan ini berbicara soal kualitas. Bahkan sampai ke pertanyaan siapa yang merekrut, siapa yang akan memecat, bagaimana perusahaan ini bekerja. Sehingga sampai ke kesadaran ketiga, yakni kesadaran akan pembagian kesejahteraan atau hasil.
So before the Portuguese, before the Dutch, before even the Arabs and the Hindu that went to Indonesia, there were a cement. These spices that went to China, to Japan, how they were organized, the people of commerce, the people of the sea, they had this wealth, this cement, this collective culture, the capacity of natural strategic labor, and they shared this wealth. People didn't live, people did not live in poverty. Okay? So this is the basic cement that when we speak about our collective culture, our collective love, our collective organizing. It's about this culture. We present this culture when we organize. The cement used in the port and logistics chain is the culture that unites workers from the ship to the walls and throughout the supply chain. Without this life force, the port and logistic culture dies. When they we'll have a class that will talk about that: modernization, management, and productivity. When we take the life, the culture of airports, ports, ships, the culture dies. When they put robots, when they automatize everything to maximize their profits, the culture dies. We cannot let that. We are not against modernization, but we need our cement to be there, our life, our culture. And that's how we present this to other people. Therefore, it is crucial to calculate the quantity and the quality of workers in the workplace according to their needs, capacity, and productivity. That's why I talk about modernization. This is our modernization. Productivity, management, and modernization to serve ourselves, to serve Indonesian society. The driving force behind any collective action, the link between the board and the front, between the category and the class and society, is the creative energy of resistance, defense, especially defense, and the power of port and strategic culture, the collective capacity for learning by both cadres and the masses. These two cultures, for information, for technical, political, civic, culture training, enriches the working class, making port and logistic culture unique in the world. Natural, this is how we present this culture: natural, creative, collective, dialogical, emancipatory, critical, innovative labor, characterized by safety, respect, and courage, technical, human, professional, and productive because it's organized, because it's exclusive, meaning the trade union is there, and powerful, can be transformed into cultural work for study, and even more for powerful to physically guarantee its existence and natural power, because this is comes from natural labor, natural collective labor. If it's more culturally organized, so the level is there. The more culture, the more easy to organize. That's the way that we have to present ourselves. Because you, Surya, Anga, Jackie, every leadership here is rich of culture, rich of culture. This is very important. Give it back to you, Surya. Próximo.
Yep. Menurut Marcelo, sebelum Portugis, Belanda, Arab, Hindu ke Indonesia, ada satu perekat bagi mereka, atau semen istilahnya. Ini adalah rempah-rempah. Kaum pedagang melihat ini dan mereka berbagi kekayaan daripada rempah-rempah tersebut. Ini adalah salah satu contoh dasar daripada perekat atau semen ketika bicara soal budaya kolektif. Semen dalam tanda kutip dalam pelabuhan atau perekat dan rantai logistik adalah budaya yang menyatukan kaum pekerja dari kapal hingga ke gudang dan ke seluruh jaringan distribusi. Tanpa ini, katakanlah misalnya nanti ada otomasi atau modernisasi, maka budaya pekerja pelabuhan itu akan mati. Maka kita butuh satu aspek perekat atau semen. Karena itu sangat penting kita menghitung jumlah dan mutu pekerja sesuai dengan kebutuhan, kapasitas, dan juga produktivitasnya. Kekuatan yang kelak akan menggerakkan setiap aksi kolektif adalah yang menghubungkan leadership pimpinan dengan anggota, yang menghubungkan kaum pekerja juga dengan masyarakat lewat energi kreatif dalam berjuang dan juga kekuatan budaya pekerja pelabuhan dan budaya pekerja strategis lainnya. Kemampuan kolektif untuk belajar baik di tingkat anggota, kader maupun yang lebih besar lagi, serta akses informasi untuk pendidikan, politik, dan juga kebudayaan, ini memperkaya kaum pekerja dan menjadikan budaya pekerja pelabuhan dan pekerja logistik ini unik di dunia. Kerja yang alami, kreatif, kolektif, dialogis, bebas, kritis, dan juga inovatif, yang ditandai dengan aspek keselamatan kerja, aspek respek, dan juga keberanian, serta manusiawi, profesional, dan juga produktif. Karena ini terorganisir, ini berdaulat, dan ini kuat, sehingga dapat merubah menjadi kekuatan budaya yang lebih besar. Bahkan kerja-kerja ini sendiri mampu menjamin keberlanjutan dan kekuatan secara nyata jika semakin kita matang secara budaya. Jadi intinya semakin kita berbudaya, semakin mudah pula kita mengorganisir. Dan penting bagi kita untuk terus menghadirkan aspek budaya ini.
So as it's about awareness and organization and conscience. So culture as the organized conscience of the class in the strategic place. So organized labor, workforce by management by workers, and wealth distribution are the essence and forms of exercise important strategic culture. In this sense, when Anga says outsourcing, when I say they are not dockers, they are other form of dockers, they're second class dockers, or when we say he belongs to a flag of convenience in the maritime, I'm saying we must raise the level of consciousness, raise the level of culture. And this is the aim. It's not easy to do that because usually we think about organized labor, just we will organize the outsourced. We will organize all the dockers, all the workers in the port, and call them different names. We will organize all the maritime. But organized labor is more than just organizing. It's a culture behind. It's a management workforce of who hires, who educates, who fires. It's interfering in that. And at the top of it, as the cherry and the top of the cake, most important, beautiful thing there is to say we will interfere in the sharing of the wealth. And that's the conscience that we want. That's the awareness of the right of natural work to a nominal and necessary minimum wage with law and rights, working and health conditions for outsourced, for flag of convenience, for all dockers, for all rail, all truck drivers, all bus drivers, individual and collective savings and collective bargain agreement. And then we see the case of El Salvador dockers, 1 year without payment, 1 year sacked because one company came from Turkey and sacked them within social dialogue. And the ITF knows that, the IDC knows that, and the WFTU knows that. So they're trying to do things, but they are 1 year without payment. And then think about war crisis, social and climate crisis. How can we interfere if we have a low level of culture, low level of awareness? Awareness of exclusively organized work in the logistic chain. This is the core of the culture. For mastering work management, we must study management of our labor conditions, not just labor conditions, but labor management, training, hiring, firing, leave, retirement, and appropriateness or not of handling hazardous or non-hazardous cargo. Look at the case of Beirut, where they had in the warehouse explosives, and when the port of Beirut exploded, it killed the dockers, killed the maritime, killed the community of the dockers, killed those who are in the Beirut society. Look what's happening in Odessa in Ukraine. As they put bombs inside the docks in Ukraine, Russia bombs, because Russia is not bombing the dockers, it's bombing the weapons that are there. So dockers should not be involved in the cargo of weapons, whether to Palestine or to Ukraine. We cannot allow that to happen. So these are hazardous cargo. It is in the rail, in the trucks, in airport, everywhere. If it's not good for passenger, it's not good for workers. So if it's delaying cargo, it has limits as well. So we must interfere in that. We must be aware. And awareness of creation and distribution of wealth. Organizing is to organize and manage our labor force, our wealth distribution. We must have a plan for that. To workers, communities, city, supply chains, to working class and society. We must speak in the name of the Indonesian society. We get to tell the government, we speak like you in the name of society. We have a global and common interest for Indonesian society. And that means working less with a greater productivity, producing and distributing everything according to what is necessary for each individual. This is the awareness that we want to create through our culture, through our labor strategic culture. I give it back to you, Surya. Próximo, Patrício.
Oke, dalam slide ini Marcelo menggambarkan budaya sebagai aspek kesadaran terorganisir daripada kaum pekerja. Jadi pekerja yang terorganisir, pengelolaan tenaga kerja itu harus oleh para pekerja itu sendiri, serta pembagian hasil atau pembagian keuntungan adalah wujud nyata daripada aktualisasi budaya pekerja dan aktualisasi daripada budaya strategis. Kesadaran atas hak untuk bekerja secara layak, di mana hak atas upah minimum yang adil dan sesuai hukum, lalu juga kondisi kerja yang manusiawi dan aman, sehat, bahkan sampai ke tabungan individu, bahkan kolektif, sebagai perlindungan pada saat terjadi krisis. Marcelo menggambarkan kejadian atau perjuangan teman-teman pekerja pelabuhan di El Salvador selama 1 tahun itu tidak digaji. Dan perjuangan ini dibantu oleh ITF, IDC, namun mereka tetap bertahan. Ada juga krisis perang, krisis sosial, dan juga krisis iklim. Pertanyaan adalah bagaimana kita melakukan intervensi kalau kesadaran kita rendah ataupun budaya kita rendah. Bahkan ada kasus di Beirut di mana gudang di pelabuhan meledak dan menewaskan pekerja pelabuhan, menewaskan masyarakat di sekitar pelabuhan itu. Ada juga kejadian case Odyssey yang meletakkan bom di daerah Ukraina. Intinya pekerja pelabuhan atau pekerja sektor strategis lainnya ini tidak boleh terlibat dalam menangani kargo atau barang-barang yang terkait dengan senjata. Jika sesuatu itu tidak baik atau tidak bagus untuk penumpang, maka itu juga tidak bagus untuk kaum pekerja. Ini kita harus selalu sadar, kita selalu harus melakukan intervensi. Nah, kesadaran akan kerja yang terorganisir secara eksklusif dalam rantai logistik, bagaimana kita menguasai manajemen pekerjaan, mulai dari pelatihan, rekrutmen, PHK, cuti pensiun, hingga kelayakan penanganan dalam hal ini di pelabuhan kargo berbahaya ataupun tidak berbahaya. Di sisi lain, kesadaran akan penciptaan dan pembagian keuntungan ini juga penting untuk pekerja, untuk masyarakat, kaum dan juga masyarakat lebih luas, di mana disesuaikan dengan produktivitas dan bagaimana mereka memproduksi dan membagikan beban kerja sesuai dengan kebutuhan setiap individu.
So as I'm speaking about our comrades in Italy and giving, them a big salve, uh, a big congratulations for what they did in support of Palestine with other just this week and last week in support of Palestine, but also in support of the Italian working class. The culture, I would say it in Italia, produrre in modo più sostenibile, lavorare meno, condividere tutto. It's to produce in a more sustainable way, to work less, and to distribute everything. This is very important for our culture. So to think about that in a strategic culture as a consciousness and organization, it's to say to produce more in a sustainable way, to work less, and to distribute the wealth that is created. This is very important for our culture. So, port and strategic culture has been built since immemorial times to transform the present and the future. But each generation needs to use this instrument according to its capacity and need for peace and common good. This is our culture. Port and strategic culture is democratic in this sense. It's in defense of Indonesian society, in defense of the majority, in a big and strong country as Indonesia, because it was created to be used collectively by all of humanity. This culture is also based on solidarity, solidaritas, because it is the fruit of collective love and mutual aid, creating bonds within and outside ports, all the way the logistic chain, along the path of goods and logistics in the different cultures around the world, but especially within Indonesia. It is also education for workers. Our culture is education for workers because it shows that from human labor, everything is created, transformed, and formed in every worker in the world. And also is a revolutionary tool because it is resistant, a defender and guardian of the past, a producer of present and future power in the greatest aspirations of the working class, and at the end, finally, is a gift for all workers, whether in Indonesia, all people, and all of humanity. I give it back to you, Surya. Thank you.
Oke, dalam slide ini Marcelo membahas tentang budaya strategis sebagai kesadaran dan juga mengorganisir. Marcelo tadi mencontohkan bagaimana teman-teman di Itali sukses besar dalam melakukan solidaritas kepada perjuangan rakyat Palestina minggu ini dan minggu lalu. Ini sekaligus juga mendukung kaum pekerja di Itali, karena ini merefleksikan budaya di mana ini diproduksi dengan cara yang lebih lestari dan juga ini didistribusikan secara luas. Jadi budaya pelabuhan, budaya pekerja pelabuhan dan budaya strategis ini telah dibangun sejak zaman dulu untuk mengubah masa kini dan juga masa depan. Namun setiap generasi harus menggunakan warisan ini sesuai dengan kemampuan dan kebutuhannya demi perdamaian dan juga kebaikan bersama. Budaya pekerja pelabuhan ataupun budaya strategis ini bersifat demokratis karena diciptakan untuk digunakan secara kolektif oleh seluruh umat manusia. Budaya ini berlandaskan solidaritas karena merupakan buah dari cinta kolektif dan juga saling membantu. Ini membangun ikatan di dalam dan di luar pekerja pelabuhan sepanjang jalur distribusi barang dan logistik ataupun lintas negara dan lintas budaya. Budaya ini juga merupakan pendidikan bagi para pekerja karena mengajarkan bahwa dari kerja manusialah semua diciptakan, diubah, dan dibentuk dalam setiap pekerja di seluruh dunia. Dan pada akhirnya budaya ini adalah alat perjuangan karena ia melawan ketidakadilan, menjaga warisan masa lalu, membangun kekuatan masa kini, menyiapkan kekuatan masa depan demi cita-cita tertinggi kaum pekerja. Dan pada akhirnya budaya ini adalah sebuah hadiah bagi semua pekerja, semua rakyat, dan seluruh umat manusia. Terima kasih. Grazie.
So thank you. Giving back to you. So we wants to use this is the core, the most important class up to now. I hope the others will be as important as today, but today is very important. Without our culture, we cannot do anything. It's so I give it back to you.
Thank you for the presentation, comrade. I very much enjoy it. Teman-teman, ada yang ingin bertanya? Jackie, you go first.
Yeah.
I just want to ask you, but I think it's not only in Indonesia. When we talk about the first slide, it's about the culture of the worker when they organize, and the culture how of the worker when they recognize as a working class. So there are so many union that I saw, especially in Indonesia, and the leader of the union, they think that they, as a worker, they also can work together with the management. They even involve in the management. What do you think about this culture that happened right now?
But first, translate to Indonesian what you just spoke.
Oke, Jackie
Suryo,
menanyakan fenomena.
Go ahead.
Oh, oke. Oke, I help. Tadi Jackie menyampaikan pertanyaan terkait dengan fenomena yang terjadi di Indonesia, bahwa budaya ini mungkin bukan hanya terjadi di Indonesia, tetapi juga di kaum pekerja lainnya dimanapun, di mana banyak pimpinan serikat pekerja di Indonesia ini bekerja sama dengan manajemen. Nah, bagaimana Marcelo melihat ini?
So the idea is that social dialogue and to work with management is a tool in the toolbox, okay? But it's not the main one. The main one is to have our culture strong. Our culture in the name of solidarity, looking of what the society in Indonesia needs and what we need as a most simple way. We will present through our culture, even in the table, even when we are with the bosses, in a different way. If this culture is strong, we will also present it in a different way because we present it in a collective way. I give you an example. If you form councils, whether in the airport or with dockers and maritime, you take them to the national square, to Merdeka Square, and then you look at the monument there. The monument is not the lion column that the Dutch built before. That was put it down because it's another culture. Indonesia now it's on itself. Indonesia will present its culture to the world. So the square has Indonesian face. The same is with the workers. When they are with the bosses, they must present themselves with their own faces, their own culture, their own interests, their own goals. And these goals are represented by the three conscience. We want to interfere if the work is how many, what is the quality of the work, wealth conditions, working conditions, salary, retirement. This is one thing. We want to interfere on whether you hire, whether you fire, whether you educate. We want to interfere. And we want to interfere in the wealth distribution. This is the presentation of our culture. And this can be presented to the management. And if the manager that is a worker, because he's not the boss is the owner of the means of production. The manager is not the boss. He's just the representative of the boss. If he thinks with the boss's mind, he will present the culture of the bosses. And we must present the culture of the labor. So we have the two represented on the table, and we will mediate this culture in the benefit of the enterprise, but also in the Indonesian society and the working class itself. If we know where we come from and where we are seated, we can sit with everybody. We can dialogue with everybody, but we must make our culture strong. So please take our best workers to the Merdeka Square and show them the picture of these workers, to show them where they come from and where they are going in the benefits of their fighting. Who will translate? Jacqueline
You want to
or
do the
you,
translation,
Surya?
Jackie?
Surya.
Okay,
But
I
first,
help.
first you
I will,
have
I
to
will.
translate. Then you give it
I
back
will.
to
I will.
Jackie, because Jackie
Jadi,
wants to put something else.
I know. I can see from her face. Uh, do you hear me okay? Halo?
Yeah, go ahead. Translate, please.
Halo?
Yeah, we hear you.
Oke, tadi tadi untuk menjawab pertanyaan Jeki terkait pimpinan serikat bekerja dengan manajemen, Marcelo menjawab dengan beberapa hal. Pertama, idenya daripada dialog sosial itu bukan satu-satunya, tetapi hal yang paling utama adalah bagaimana kita sebagai pekerja harus memiliki budaya yang kuat atas nama solidaritas. Bagaimana kita mengidentifikasi apa yang dibutuhkan oleh anggota dalam formulasi yang sangat sederhana. Kita harus menunjukkan budaya kita di depan manajemen ataupun bos secara budaya kolektif.
Surya just fell. So if you can complete, Jackie, please, the translation.
Ya, artinya kita bisa menunjukkan budaya kita sebagai seorang pekerja, walaupun kita juga dapat melakukan sosial dialog dengan manajemen. Artinya kerja-kerja yang dilakukan oleh pekerja pada saat kita melakukan sosial dialog itu dapat dilakukan untuk mencapai apa yang menjadi goal kita, sehingga kita bisa menunjukkan budaya kita sebagai kelas pekerja di depan manajemen.
So I can understand the common worker that doesn't understand the working culture, and that's why we're here. But a leadership must present our culture. Social dialogue without our culture is submission. We need our culture to have social dialogue. If you can translate that, please.
Jadi sebagai pemimpin serikat dalam hal ini kita bisa melakukan sosial dialog, tetapi sosial dialog itu tidak bisa dilakukan oleh pemimpin serikat jika dia tidak menunjukkan budaya dari pekerja itu sendiri.
Now go ahead.
So Marcello, I just translated and but one thing, have you ever have experience that the union leader become part of the management? And do you think it's good? Jadi saya bertanya bahwa apakah Marcello punya pengalaman di tempat kerjanya atau dia pernah melihat seorang pemimpin pekerja, pemimpin serikat itu juga menjadi bagian dari manajemen, bahkan menjadi manajemen? Itu pertanyaan saya yang kedua.
It is good if he knows his place. It is good if he knows his objectives. It is good if he knows his goals. It is good if he knows his culture. If he knows his culture, he's seated in the board with the management and says, "This is our position. This is our position from our culture, from the discussion that we had." And because there are momentary objectives and there are permanent objectives. We discussed today historical and permanent objectives. And these we can present in the board. This we can present in the management. This we can present if we know our place. But if we are under the submission of the capital culture, then it's very bad for the workers. And this leadership must be substituted.
Jadi, kalau menurut Marcello, ini bagus ketika itu bisa dilakukan kalau si pemimpin itu tahu tujuannya. Kalau si pemimpin itu bisa menunjukkan, walaupun dia bagian dari board of management, dia bisa menunjukkan warnanya, dia bisa menunjukkan kultur dia sebagai kelas pekerja. Tetapi karena ini juga merupakan bagian untuk mencapai goal para pekerja, yaitu melalui pemimpin serikat yang mengambil bagian di Board of Management. Tetapi kalau dia terpengaruh dengan budaya kapital dan dia tidak tahu budaya dia sebagai kelas pekerja, ini adalah contoh dan hal yang paling buruk.
Yeah, I see, and this we can work also in the working groups. I see two difficulties in Indonesian organizing. It's one side, how to educate not the leaders, because the leaders, they will have a position, whether for labor culture, whether for capital culture. I'm talking about the intermediary cadres. So how to have not just members organized, but intermediary cadres to help the labor culture to evolve. So if you have a board of 15 to 20 leaders, you should be organizing in a 2,000 membership base around 200 workers, around 50 workers at least, in order to add to this 20. In order to prepare them in the labor culture. That's why I said, instead of taking them to the management board only, I would take them there also, every time to... Patrícia, ajuda o Suri a voltar, por favor. Instead of just having the visit to the management that I will advise people to be. I advise people to go to the management reunion meetings, to have one representative from these cadres, the intermediary cadres. But also, most important than that, is to have a visit to the Merdeka Square, to show them how it was the Dutch culture and how it is the Indonesian government culture. And it's the same for the workers. How is the management in the enterprise for capital, and how is the workers' culture? We can make a parallel between the two. You have the faces of Indonesian workers in the Merdeka Square. And we need the face of the workers in the management as well, in the enterprises. But not to be submissive, but to do what our culture says. Interfere in the labor. Interfere in the labor organization exclusively. Interfere in hiring, in the education, in fire, in retirement. Interfere in the wealth distribution. This is our labor culture that we have to cherish. And I believe that you can do that. And we can evolve more in the working groups how to discuss to do that specifically. But these two problems that we have, one, with a leadership that are schizophrenic, they don't know if they are bosses or if they are workers. We have to remind them that the culture of labor is very different than the culture of bosses. This is one thing. And the other thing is like organizing an intermediate group, not just members and the board of direction, but one group that can have qualified education in the middle. And that's very important because this group will help us to make to the grassroots our labor culture that is so important, not just for strategic workers, but for the working class and the whole of Indonesian society. I think you have to translate, Jackie, because Surya was out in the half of the question.
Jadi saya tahu bahwa di Indonesia ini memang sulit dilakukan karena memang budaya pekerja ini memang harus diterapkan sejak dari awal. Budaya yang dimiliki oleh para pekerja. Bukan untuk para pemimpin serikat ya, karena mereka tahu tentang budaya pekerja, mereka juga tahu budaya kapital. Tetapi yang paling penting pada saat ini adalah bagaimana kita dapat mengorganize anggota kita. Misalnya sebagai bagian dari pengurus serikat, kita juga mengambil bagian dari manajemen, kita mengambil bagian untuk menjadi untuk dapat melakukan sosial dialog. Kita juga dapat mengorganize member kita. Dari 2000 kita mempunyai kekuatan untuk mengorganize sekitar 200 orang untuk memiliki satu kekuatan yang bisa menjadi bagian dari sosial dialog bersama manajemen. Tapi yang paling penting kalian harus mengerti bahwa bagian dari manajemen itu bukannya kalian menjadi bawahannya manajemen atau menjadi bagian yang harus diatur oleh manajemen, tetapi kalian adalah pekerja yang memiliki budaya pekerja yang dapat menunjukkan kekuatan kalian. Nah, hal ini memang tidak mudah, tetapi yang paling penting adalah ketika budaya ini dapat kalian terapkan, even itu di depan manajemen, kalian dapat menunjukkan kekuatan kalian yang sesungguhnya sebagai pekerja. Sehingga dalam menerapkan budaya pekerja, walaupun kalian menjadi bagian atau dapat bekerja sama dengan manajemen, kalian tidak akan terpengaruh dengan budaya kapital, tapi kalian lebih banyak menunjukkan budaya pekerja untuk menggalang kekuatan di antara kalian semua. Saya pikir kalian bisa melakukan itu.
Jackie, translate this sentence, please. Social dialogue is not bad if we have a strong labor culture, not strong capital culture.
Dialog sosial, repeat again, please. Social dialogue
is not bad if we have a strong labor culture, not capital culture, not strong capital culture.
Dialog sosial itu tidak buruk, tetapi dialog sosial itu tidak buruk asalkan kita mempunyai budaya pekerja yang kuat dan bukan budaya kapital yang kuat.
We want to change society. We want the labor to be above society. We want the bourgeoisie to be under Indonesia society, under the working class goals, under the working class goals for Indonesian society. That's how we can have social dialogue. If we don't forget that.
Marcelo, I cannot listen the last sentence.
The last sentence is that if we have strong goals for Indonesian society to change it radically, to make the distribution of wealth, to have another society with popular power and people's power, then we can have social dialogue.
Jadi dialog sosial itu kita butuhkan untuk mengubah environment kita, lingkungan kita, yaitu lingkungan kelas pekerja. Justru sosial dialog itu harus kita lakukan supaya kita menjadi lebih kuat. Artinya kekuatan kita semakin besar dengan kita melakukan sosial dialog kalau kita tidak meninggalkan budaya kita sebagai budaya pekerja.
So now I give to Angga and to Surya if you have any comments, if you want to.
Angga mau nanya sesuatu?
Banyak.
Ayo Yan, bantuin Yan.
Enggak.
Marcelo, ini seperti sesuatu cerita yang sangat besar. Kita sedang berbicara soal kelas pekerja, kepentingan kelas pekerja secara internasional. Tapi saya mau cerita, di Indonesia itu pembentukan proletariat itu tidak sepenuhnya seperti di banyak negara. Nanti Marcelo bisa menceritakan pengalamannya di banyak negara. Saya mau menjabarkan beberapa penjelasan. Di Indonesia, pekerja informal itu jumlahnya sekitar 60%. Pekerja formal itu jumlahnya sekitar 40%. Jadi 60% pekerja kita itu masuk di dalam kategori lumpen proletariat itu. Dia bukan murni sebagai proletariat yang hidup di industrial gitu, yang dibentuk melalui watak industrial. Ini berbeda dengan cerita di Eropa, di Amerika yang memang dibentuk melalui watak industrial. Kelas pekerja di Indonesia itu 60% ya lumpen proletariat, dia semi proletariat, dia tidak mengandalkan formasi dari kerja upahan gitu. Maka kemudian di banyak trajektori historis di Indonesia itu berkembang model-model front dengan kelompok agama, dengan kelompok nasionalis, dengan kelompok liberal yang kemudian mencampur adukan budaya kelas pekerja dengan budaya-budaya yang lain gitu. Gimana menurut Marcelo mengenai proses pembentukan sejarah secara spesifik di Indonesia? Atau Marcelo melihat juga sejarah pembentukan masyarakat atau sejarah pembentukan proletariat di negara-negara yang lain yang serupa dengan Indonesia? Thank you.
Translate langsung nggak? Oke, Marcelo. So, Angga, I want to ask something about. He begin with he acknowledged this is about the interest of working class, but in Indonesia, according to him, the formation of proletariat is not similar with historically in other countries. For example, in Indonesia, informal workers uh, consists of 60%, while formal is 40%. So the 60% of workers includes in proletariat category, but they are not pure proletariat or formed uh, by the industrialism phase. So in other subjects based on historically trajectory in Indonesia, there are some development about mixed front between the culture of working class with religion, with the nationalism, with the liberalism. So this mixed uh, culture is quite unique or confusing. So what do you think about this, Marcel? Or do you have any similar sample according to what happened in Indonesia?
Well, Anger, what you said is, first of all, I want to say that I understood a little bit. Huh? I went before the translation. I understood a little bit. The core of what you said is the lumpen proletariat. It's that part that is in the precarious work and informal work, the 60%. But, Anger, if they are inside the port, inside the airport, and inside the ship, they are not informal anymore. We must find a way to organize them. They are informal outside. We will deal with this situation in three ways. First, within our culture. So, our culture directly touching them. So, our strategic culture. First of all, is Indonesian culture. They are all Indonesians. First, even if they are foreigners, if they are Malaysians from Timor, from other places around, they're there. So they have to be organized as if they were Indonesians. So they are under the Indonesian umbrella. So they are not under Dutch or North American or former imperial culture. No, they are under Indonesian umbrella, Indonesian prosperity, Indonesian goals. This is the first thing. So this is everywhere. Whether you're in the community, in the city, in the Jakarta, in the country land, it doesn't matter. This is Indonesia. This is one thing. Indonesia is above. The Republic of Indonesia is above religion, is above foreign non-foreigners. It has laws for everybody. It's under the Republic of Indonesia. So this is one culture. It's a non-imperialist culture. It's a non-dependent culture. It's Indonesian culture. This culture has goals. And these goals are better than many countries in Latin America and Africa and Asia. These countries don't have goals like Indonesia to have industrialization. So even though you have 60% informal, you have people under one industrialization objective. More industrialized labor, more well payment and collective bargain agreement and formalization, because you cannot have an industry with informal people. It will not going to happen. They need formal job inside these industries. So we profit of it. So we need to get our culture inside these informal places. But in my opinion, the most important is our example as strategic workers. We have our culture. So if they're inside the airport, inside the docks, inside the ships, inside the rail company, they are dockers, airline workers, they must be under a law. So they are not lump proletariat anymore, even if they have their minds like that. So we will initiate a process to organize them in a way that we can. I know it's difficult, it's not easy. And it's very similar to Latin American countries where informal work is high, like Peru, for example. Peru, we have a class with Peruvian dockers. The majority of Peru society, like 80%, 70%, is informal. But the dockers are formal. The dockers are an example. So we have to make the dockers, the airline workers, the maritime, an example for the whole of society. And that's how our culture can dialogue with this issue. We have to organize them from our culture, from our strategic and strong culture. And that's the way of doing. It's hard. We need cadres, we need means, we need time, but it's feasible. It's feasible. And we can deal with that in the working group. We can set up something to organize one specific airport, and we can do a study case for this airport. We have to study to organize. We have to use our culture to organize, and we have to have allies to organize as well.
Ngerti kan, Bung?
No, now you translate.
Okay.
And then you pass to you to finish.
Menurut Marcelo, Bung, ketika mereka ada di dalam pelabuhan atau di bandara, mereka nggak lumpen lagi, mereka bukan informal lagi, tetapi memang harus diorganisir dengan tadi 3 kesadaran, dan yang paling penting adalah mengorganisir mereka lewat budaya kita, budaya Indonesia. Apapun itu harus diintervensi ke dalam budaya kita. Tadi contohnya memang banyak terjadi di Amerika Latin, salah satunya Peru, di mana kebanyakan 70-80% informal. Tetapi ada yang sektor formalnya pekerja pelabuhan. Maka bagaimana kita menjadikan contoh pekerja pelabuhan ini sebagai budaya? Memang berat, memang butuh banyak kader, butuh kesabaran, tetapi ini bukan tidak mungkin. Kita bisa melakukannya dari diskusi dengan grup kecil. Intinya dari penyampaian Marcelo adalah kita harus menggunakan budaya kita untuk mengorganisir tadi yang Bung sampaikan terkait concern pekerja informal tadi.
So now it's you to finish.
I think it's quite close to end of our presentation, our class. I think I don't have anything. It's so
Okay.
clear, and thank you so much for your presentation.
So I just want to add something very quick. Anga and
Okay.
Surya, we can set up our studying group for every specific case, but we need you, Anga, and you, Surya, to get 4 to 5 people that are not involved in these discussions, but they have to watch the classes. Okay? So you, Anga, you choose, you pick, help him with that, Jackie, please. Getting like 4 or 5 that can study specific case, especially his question. That is one of the most important questions that we have. How can we deal with that? With people that are more difficult to organize. And that's what we have to discuss in the working groups. Okay?
Okay.
So you should do the same for the dockers. This is very important because as the culture is stronger, we'll have more easy ways. If it's weaker, it will be more difficult.
Got it, comrade. Will
Okay.
do.
Can you translate for Anga this list?
He understand actually.
He understands. No, but the others that we'll watch.
Oke. Jadi menurut Marcelo kita bisa melakukan studi kasus dalam berbagai hal. Hanya butuh Angga dalam hal ini. Gitu. Jadi orang-orang kayak Angga sangat penting. Katakanlah misalnya kita kumpulkan 4-5 orang nonton kelas ini dan melihat respon mereka bagaimana kesulitan mereka untuk mengorganisir. Ini PR dari Marcelo. Mudah-mudahan teman-teman organizer untuk bandara ataupun pelabuhan bisa melakukan ini. Dan
Obrigado. Thank you.
Thank you. Grazie.
Thank you all. It was one of the best classes because I could really discuss the core of the core. You know? Thank you so much, Eki. Thank you, Anga.
Thank you, Professor Marcelo. Thank you, Patricia.
Solidarity.
Thank you.